Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast. Quick picks video for UFC Atlanta. Buckley taking on Usman. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down the entire card in 15 minutes or less. Confident level traffic light system at the bottom for each individual pick as we start off in the early prelims with Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Jamie Lynn Horth. And give me Jamie Lynn Horth here. I think this girl is going to be far too big for Vanessa Demopoulos. Demopoulos taking this fight on short notice, upper weight class. I think that Horth has always been a big girl for this particular weight class, but here against Vanessa, I think that she's going to be the much bigger, stronger woman in a lot of these different grappling positions. I think Vanessa's probably the better out-and-out pure jiu-jitsu practitioner. I don't think that that's really going to play a factor here. I think Horth is going to get her up against the fence. If she wants to take her down and control her on the ground and kind of just be a weight bully, I think that that's going to be her path to victory here. I think in the striking, Vanessa's definitely going to have a speed advantage. However, I think Horth gets in the clinch here, beats her up, and just makes this a dirty fight overall. Medium level confidence here as women's MMA can be a little bit tricky, but I do think Jamie Lynn Horth here uses her size and the clinch to get it done here against Vanessa Demopoulos on short notice. And next up, we have Angelosa taking on Phil Rowe, and both of these guys are questionably inconsistent, to say the least. It's very hard to trust both of these guys. I think Angelosa is a guy that we know is going to move forward, which is why I'm picking him here with very little confidence. I know that I can rely on him to move forward. Definitely get the fight to the ground if he wants to. He definitely is going to have a little bit more volume in this matchup, and that's always been the knock on Phil Rowe. We've seen in many of his fights, he has the range advantage with his long reach and his long limbs, but he tends not to use it. He tends to be low volume. He does have good jiu-jitsu, but we don't necessarily see him wrestle a whole lot, and I can rely on Losa to actually either want to get this fight to the ground or at least pressure forward and make it look in the judge's eyes like he's the one that's being the aggressor, taking up space in the octagon, moving forward, and at least taking his fight to the opponent. So give me Losa here, but this fight, not very confident. It's hard to trust both guys. Moving on, give me Losa. And next up, we have Ricky Simón taking on a new opponent. He was meant to face Charles Jourdain, now facing Cameron Smotherman. Smotherman stepping in on short notice here. But give me Ricky Simón. I think the wrestling here is going to be the biggest factor. On a full camp, I think he's going to come in here, look to implement the wrestling here against Smotherman. I do think that Smotherman's boxing and his hands are going to be a little bit quicker than Ricky Simón. We've seen in his past few fights that Ricky's had a little bit of difficulty. However, that's been against some much higher level opponents so far inside the UFC. Smotherman himself had a pretty lackluster performance in his last fight. I think on short notice here, he just gets out-wrestled and out-grappled against a much higher level fighter in Ricky Simón. Give me Ricky Simón here, medium level confidence. Only really not going to be a green pick or a high level confidence here for Simón, purely because he has had some shaky performances in his last couple of fights. So Ricky Simón, medium level confidence to get it done with the wrestling. And next up, we have Cody Durden taking on Jose Ochoa. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Cody Durden pulls off the upset here. He is from Atlanta. He's going to have the crowd on his side. He is going to have the wrestling, but he's just had some very lackluster performances recently. He's been finished in a few fights, so he is hard to trust, getting up there in age as well. And Ochoa had a really impressive back and forth fight against Lona Kavanagh in his UFC debut. His striking looked great. He was able to take the back. He had a little bit of wrestling in there. And this guy looks pretty decent, and I think the hand speed and the overall finishing from Ochoa is going to be all it takes. Does train out of Shooter Box, Diego Lima, with Charles Oliveira and those guys, so definitely can get it done on the feet or on the ground. But I just don't really trust Cody Durden right now. I do think that if the wrestling goes south and he can't get this fight to the floor, Ochoa is going to have success with the hands. But I wouldn't be surprised if Durden pulls this one out with the wrestling. But not very high level confidence here from Ochoa, but he's going to be the pick this week to get it done. And next up, we have Malcolm Wellmaker taking on Chris Moutinho. And Chris Moutinho is basically the human punching bag. That's why he's in this fight. This is a showcase bout here for Wellmaker. Wellmaker with the powerful hands coming off that first round KO of Cameron Simon. I think this is going to be pretty much a rinse and repeat. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being a late second or third round TKO with Chris Moutinho just taking a whole lot of damage and the referee having to stop it. Give me Malcolm Wellmaker here. Confident level pick. He's going to get this one one done, probably late stoppage with a TKO or just an absolute bloody one-sided beat down, maybe with some 10-8 rounds in there if it ends up going to a decision. But I think he gets the KO. Confidence level here in well makers through the roof. Next up, we have Court McGee taking on Michael Chiesa. And give me Court McGee, man. I think that out of these two, I definitely trust McGee's toughness a little bit more. I think out of both of them that Michael Chiesa is probably the better finisher when it comes to the pure jiu-jitsu. But I like Court McGee's wrestling. I think that he's the stronger guy. I think he's the more gritty guy, the more tough guy. He's the guy in there that I know that he'll fight for, if you're putting money on him, he'll fight for your dollar. But not only that, he's talked about how he's come back after his surgery. He had a pretty severe neck injury, and he's looked or felt fantastic in his training since that surgery. He looked good in his last fight, getting the first round submission over Tim Means. Michael Chiesa, he's always been on the desk. He's always had different things to worry about throughout his UFC career. He's always kind of worrying about the desk job and what he's going to be doing after his fight. Both guys getting up there in age. Court McGee, 40. Michael Chiesa, 37. So both guys could definitely fall off a cliff at any point. But I just trust Court McGee here to kind of weather a storm, whether he wants to get this fight to the ground, keep this one on the feet, pressure forward, just be the gritty, tougher fighter in this matchup here. Give me Court McGee to get this one done, but not necessarily the highest level of confidence. And next up, we have Paul Craig taking on Rodolfo Bellato. And this fight is obviously scheduled a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, Bellato had to pull out due to herpes, and now we've got the rematch that no one wanted. But give me Paul Craig, former dog of the week. Paul Craig's going to get this fight to the ground, or Bellato is going to end up shooting a stupid takedown and end up on either in guard or on his back here against Paul Craig. And once you take the fight to the ground against Paul Craig, that's going to be all she wrote. I think Paul Craig gets the submission here. Bellato's really, his whole skill set is just being overly aggressive. I think if you're overly aggressive against Paul Craig, you either get taken down or you end up in his guard. You get triangled, you get swept or choked. Give me Paul Craig here. I think he finds a submission or a finish on the ground due to Bellato's poor fight IQ. But would I be surprised if Bellato does chin Paul Craig? Absolutely not. But Bellato just strikes me as a guy that's all aggression, no fight IQ. So I think Paul Craig gets it done here. And next up, Alonzo Menafield taking on Umar Sy. And Alonzo Menafield, he has power in the hands. Not necessarily the biggest guy for the weight class in terms of height and reach. Very stocky, but can be a little bit labored, especially when the fight goes longer. He tends to sort of build up a little bit of lactic acid and slow down. Sy has pretty much shown a well-rounded skill set. He's shown in his last fight he can go the distance, decent kickboxing, but we've also seen with him that he likes to get fights to the ground, take the back, and choke people out. I think he has a more well-rounded skill set in this fight. 11-0, never tasted defeat. If he wants to take this one to the ground, I think he can. If he wants to keep this one on the feet, he has the height and the range advantage here and the reach advantage. I think Sy gets this one done here. He's going to be the faster striker and the better grappler, so give me the Frenchman here to get it done. Medium-level confidence. And next up, we have Cody Brundage taking on Mansour Abdul Malik. And I like this fight here for Malik. I think that he's going to get the finish here early on Cody Brundage. Big-time athlete, very explosive, especially early in the first few rounds. The storyline with him has always been his cardio. We've always never been able to see him go a little bit longer in fights, but I don't think Cody Brundage is going to be the person that's going to take him there. I think Malik gets him out of there early, which is why I'm very high on him this week as a high-level confidence pick. I think Malik gets the knockout early in round one. Give me Mansour Abdul Malik to get it done. And next up, we have Ronnie Barcelos taking on Cody Garbrandt. And I like Cody Garbrandt here, especially as the underdog. I think that the hand speed here is going to be all it takes to beat Barcelos. I think a lot of people think that Barcelos is going to be able to get this fight to the ground very often. I think Cody Garbrandt's foot speed and hand speed is going to be too much here. I think this fight stays upright and Garbrandt uses his hand speed here to get it done in the striking. And I do think that Barcelos can hang with Garbrandt in the striking, but I do think overall, if this one plays out on the feet like I see it, I think Garbrandt's going to have all the success he wants to get this one done, maybe by knockout, maybe by a one-sided decision. So give me Cody Garbrandt here to get it done. Medium-level confidence pick. And next up, we have Edmund Shabazian taking on Andre Petrovsky. And again, like I said earlier with Phil Rowe and Losa, how can you trust either one of these guys? We know with Petrosky that he comes in, he looks for takedowns, but he will gas because of his build and overall cardio issues. Edmund Shabazian's takedown defense sucks. Would I be surprised if Petrosky comes in here, gets enough takedowns and top control, or finds a submission here on Shabazian? Hell no, I wouldn't be surprised. But give me Edmund Shabazian here. I think that even if he gets taken down in the first round, I think he might survive. Petrosky will then gas, and obviously the fight will start on the feet in round 2. I think that's where Edmund Shabazian will take over with the striking. And one thing we have seen from Shabazian is that his striking, he can put people out on the feet. I think Petrosky may get a takedown early or may get knocked out coming into the pocket, but give me Shabazian here. Very, very, very low confidence here in Shabazian to get it done. I wouldn't be surprised if Petrosky pulls off the upset with the wrestling. And next up, we have the co-main event, Rose Namajunas taking on Miranda Maverick. Give me Maverick here. We saw in Rose's last fight, she's going to be tough to trust after that Aaron Blanchfield fight. She pretty much handed that last fight to Aaron Blanchfield, won the first 2 rounds, and just kind of gave up on herself or looked to slow down. I think Maverick comes in here rejuvenated after having her baby. I think she comes in and she's pretty much got the better cardio, the better wrestling here. She's young. I think this is old lion versus new lion. I think she comes in and just wrestles Rose Namajunas. I think in the striking, Rose definitely has the advantage. She has the experience, but I think Maverick here knows that if she can come in and implement a very wrestle-heavy game plan, she should have the better cardio, training at altitude, and I think that she's going to be able to pull off the upset here against Rose Namajunas. I don't trust Rose, especially after her last performance. She's kind of been a little bit in and out, especially with some of her inconsistencies, and just not looked herself. So give me Maverick here to get it done in the co-main event. And next up, the main event of the evening, Kamaru Usman taking on Joaquin Buckley. And I'm going to go with Buckley here. I wouldn't be surprised if Usman does pull off the upset, but I think it's hard to trust Usman at this point for what he is, 38 years old, obviously coming off of 3 straight losses. Don't get me wrong, to high-level guys in Hamzat and Leon Edwards, but I think Buckley's been on a tear, especially at welterweight. He's undefeated at welterweight, and he's looked good, and I do think that the speed, the youth, and overall, there's just the level of confidence that Buckley has right now is going to be enough here against Kamaru Usman. Usman's got, questionable knees, as people have said many times. How bad they are, we don't necessarily know. But I just think that Buckley here in the first few rounds is going to do enough, especially in rounds 2 and 3. I still think the speed's going to be there. I think the athleticism definitely goes to Buckley. If he wants to try to mix in takedowns just to kind of change things up, I think he can. But I don't think he'll necessarily get the takedowns because I do think Usman's the better wrestler. But give me Buckley here. I think the speed and the youth and overall confidence is going to be enough for him to get it done here against Kamaru Usman. And coming up on the channel, we have the full card breakdown of this event, UFC Atlanta. Check that out. Carlos and I do a detailed breakdown of the whole entire event, of every single fight on the card. And check out my Dog of the Week video, my favorite betting underdog on this card. Check it out, full highlight reel tape there for you guys, and a full breakdown of why I like this particular fighter this week to make us some money. We'll have a best bets video coming out for you guys this week. Hit that like and subscribe button as always, 15 minutes or less. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.